I've just spun up this brand spanking new user profile on my PC. So I'm going to walk you through the steps that I would take to get ready to use PowerShell. And I believe that these steps are going to be useful whether you're setting up a new machine as an experienced PowerShell user or you've never touched PowerShell a second before in your life. So the first thing that we have to do is if you are on a Windows machine, you already have PowerShell downloaded, ready to go out of the box. At least for laptops and PCs. I've never checked for like a Surface laptop how those work. And if you somehow have a Windows phone, that's just props to you. So you open up your start menu and just start typing the words PowerShell. So the default Windows PowerShell app is going to look like this. Please, for the love of all that is holy, never use this app to run your PowerShell. No, instead what you want to do is you want to go to your Microsoft Store and you want to look for what's called the Windows Terminal. Now, because this is a user account on a machine that I already have stuff, okay, I wasn't sure if I was already going to have it or not, but it looks like I still have to get this app to put it on like this profile. And then what you're going to find is this Windows Terminal, not only can it run PowerShell, it can run a whole lot more, and it's going to look way more sleek and fancy than the Windows PowerShell one that I just opened. So for direct comparison here, if I start typing PowerShell, just like look at this, like just on face value alone, which one would you rather spend 4 hours staring at trying to debug while pulling your hair out? For me, at least, I choose the Windows Terminal hands down every day. Real quick, some benefits here of the Windows Terminal. If you ever get to a point where you've fallen in love with programming and you just want to go wild, the Windows Terminal allows you not only to run Windows PowerShell host console scripting, you can run command prompt. You can run Azure Cloud Shell. You can run Git Bash. You can actually add to these various languages. I'm not exactly sure how exactly to phrase some of these. So like the Windows Terminal is kind of multiple programs baked and packaged into one. So what we want to do is here, it's telling me something about the settings. So let's see. Well, what does it say? Oh, my default profile. We'll get to profile. But the default terminal application, no. Windows, you don't get to decide. I'm telling you, be the Windows Terminal. No reason to launch it. No reason to do any of that. Sure. So we're just going to save the rest of these, and you can go through and make it all customizable to you. All this stuff, though, not available over on that Windows PowerShell window. So you get here where this is a default header that loads unless you manually make some settings to not have it load. It doesn't bother me that much. It's a couple of lines. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines. Big whoop. If you really want it gone, you can actually type the command clear host and then hit enter. Oh, and look at that. Now I have a fresh, clean console host to work from. Now you might be asking yourself, well, what all can I do here from a Windows PowerShell console host? The easiest one is it can be used as a calculator. Not very often you're gonna want to do that because that's what a calculator app is for. But I know I need the fraction for like what is 1/7? 1/7. That's a weird fraction. It's got all kinds of decimals and stuff. Oh, okay, yeah, that's 1/7. Well, what's 1/7 plus? Okay, there I accidentally typed in 1/74. So we'll do it. 1/7 plus 1/74. Huh. Okay. Well, that's interesting, but okay, 1/7 and 1/6. Okay, so you're getting the idea that you can do math from the what's called the command line here of a Windows PowerShell console host. The other big advantage that you can do, now I believe because this is a brand new user profile, I shouldn't have any files, but you notice here So PS, that just stands for PowerShell. And then this part right here, C users Jackal demo, that's actually telling me the folder or the directory that we're currently inside of as the PowerShell host. So the PowerShell console here, it's has like a focused current directory or folder. You know, anytime I say directory, think folder. Anytime I say folder, think directory. So it's taking a peek into C users Jackal demo. Okay. So if I run the command get child item, it's going to get for me any child items that are inside this active directory, this current directory. It takes some time to think. So it tells me, well, when we ran this command, we were inside that folder, that directory, and we found all these things. This mode, that D stands for, it's a directory, it's a folder. R, I believe that means you have read access to it. So, okay, so PowerShell will let me kind of break out my binoculars and view into any folder of my computer. I don't know for any of you sharp-eyed individuals, you may have noticed that I run a couple different profiles from this machine. So I don't know if this will be because of how I have this brand spanking new profile set up. Let's try to go up the folder tree one. So I want to set my location, and ... just means like go up one. Okay, so you see how the Jackal demo just got chopped off, and now the console is looking at C users. So we can do the up arrow to get child item again. We can run that, and now it's like it's exactly what we did here in the, what is this called? File Explorer? I think that's called File Explorer. It's Windows Explorer, whatever it's called. I'm going to call it File Explorer. So let's set our location, and I'm lazy. I don't want to type all this stuff. Let's go to the one of these that starts with some stuff and then uses 5.5. So this is what's called a wildcard. It's a way to be lazy, and if you're at the command line, weirdly enough, it's probably a sign that you're like me, you're a lazy individual and want to find as many shortcuts as possible. So look at that. I'm now inside the folder of another user on this machine. Well, let's take a peek at what maybe folder structure or files I've got living over there. Again, we're lazy. I don't want to have to keep typing get child item. What's nice about PowerShell here on the command line is I can use aliases or a nickname, a shorthand, to run the exact same command. So get child item, that's a lot to type. I mean, I don't even know how many characters that is. There's 5 there, 5 there, 5. So it's something around, between 12 and 15 characters. GCI, that's only 3 characters. Oh, okay. And it turns out I don't have access to it. So I can't actually peek into there because of some permissions things, but not a problem. We'll go back up. Okay, so we want to be lazy. Well, what could be any possible aliases for this set location command that I've been using? If I type get help and then feed into, so when I say feed into, I'm using that string of letters set dash location as the input to the function or into the command get help. So when I hit enter, PowerShell is going to say, do I recognize any functions, any commands with this specific name? And yep, I found one. Here are the 3 different ways that set location can be run. Oh, and look at this. It does have 3 aliases. So instead of set location, I could just do SL. Again, I'm lazy, so I want the one that starts with something and then ends with demo to plop me back in here where I do have access and I can run the GCI. And then going over here, so get help. So I could, in order to successfully run or successfully execute the set location function, I can either pass it a path. I could pass it a literal path. That's more of an advanced concept of why path versus literal path. What's the difference? And then there's also the even more advanced concept of a stack location. Typically, you're only ever going to be using this literal path for anybody that wants a quick teaser. Let's say you've got a restricted character like a question mark or spaces inside the file path location that you are trying to get to. Then what you'd have to do is you'd have to feed the set location a literal path in order for it to recognize, or what's in the lingo, the parlance of the PowerShell community, in order for it to properly parse, you have to tell it that, hey, this is going to be a literal path. There's going to be spaces and maybe question marks and all kinds of stuff that Windows is not supposed to let you do as a file name. But hey, somehow you found a way. You want to get there. So, well, I should say spaces are totally cool, but things can get weird once you start doing spaces. Which is why you should never put spaces in your folder names, file names, anything. Spaces are bad, at least when it comes to a computer. Give me space in person, but no spaces on a computer. So these are all just folders, like I said. Well, folders are no fun. Let's create a new item. Now, before we run new item, we want to, of course, get help for new item. So pretty simple command. There's two different ways we can run it. We feed it the path, which if you're starting to look here, if you're really breaking this down, you'll notice that there's these square brackets, then there's these angle brackets. So the difference is telling you whether a input parameter is mandatory or optional. If the angle brackets are outside of the square brackets, that indicates that it is a mandatory input parameter. It's a mandatory value that you have to feed into the function. So on this type of run of new item, I have to, at a bare minimum, feed it the string, which is going to name the path that I want the new item to land at. Then some optional things, I could optionally feed it item type, a value, force, credentials, what ifs, confirms, user, all of these extra stuff. But for me, like when I run new item, I'm really only ever looking at these two: path, item type. Now, the other way to run new item is you can instead name the item, what's its item type, where is it going to land, where's it going to live, what's its path going to be. So we want to do a new item, and it's going to have a path, or no, I don't need because path would be if I'm maybe trying to so currently I'm in the C users Jackal demo. Let's say I wanted it to land in some child nested folder somewhere. I don't really need to do that. We're just going to do demo new item. We're just going to make this a .txt file. And then just to really make sure that nothing wonky goes down, I want to really say that this is going to be a file. It's an item type file. Okay, so it tells me that there is now inside this directory the new item created with the name that. So mode A stands for item, basically not folder, not directory, not folder. That was last written or last modified. It's really early here for me. And the contents of that item are 0. The length inside the item is 0. Okay, well, I want to do stuff to that file. Let's say I want to type in that file. So I can actually type Notepad. Notepad is a command. And I want to open this demo file. Again, we're lazy. We can use wildcard characters. So I'm going to use the Notepad command to open that file I just created in Notepad. And okay, it doesn't like something. So I might have to do the full name. There we go. Notepad doesn't like wildcard characters. So if you're going to open something in Notepad, it has to be the exact name. So we're going to put some content in here. My name is Jack, and online I go by the moniker Jackal Brute. How has your day been? One little nitpick that I've heard, more so from other people, I haven't quite seen it so much for myself. I can see why it could potentially cause issues, is when you're doing like a simple text file, just end it with a blank dead line, a new line, just basically nothing there. Then I'm going to do a Control S to save this file. I'm going to close it. And now I want to get the item. So I want to refresh this output. But now that I've made some edits to that demo new item. And look at this. Now, the last write time has been updated. The length also updated. So that's telling me that there is stuff inside of that file. Well, it's a .txt file, so odds are it's not encoded, probably not encrypted. So, well, guess what? There's a get content command. And I'm going to pull the content, just the raw content, out of demo new item. And look at that. There is all of the lines displayed right there to me inside my PowerShell session host console window. There's a lot of weird names that you could use to refer to this, but like at the command line, I just read that text file that easily, that quickly. No bones about it. Well, let's say, I've decided, it's rename item. And let's check. Let's say I don't like the way that demo new item.txt. I'm not feeling that name. Well, let's rename it. So we want to rename the item. I want to rename demo. So that'll be the path. And its new name that I want to give it instead is going to be demo text file.txt. Oh, what did I do wrong? Path is not valid. All right, so there we go. And now I can run a GCI inside where I'm at, and look, now the file has a name of demo text file.txt. So PowerShell can very quickly rename files in any folder that you have write access to. And read write access, you can go Google and YouTube that topic somewhere else. So we've created files. You can also create folders. Let's say that new item, name demo, item type. And here I'm testing that. I don't know if this will work. Oh, well. So I can actually tab to sort of peek at the suggested values for item type. Well, I want to make a directory. I want to make a folder called demo. And there it is. Well, now I want to move my demo text file. The destination, I want to put it inside demo. So now if I run GCI, well, wait, where is my txt file? It's no longer here. Because what PowerShell just did is it moved that file here into demo. So let's set my location to demo, run another GCI. There it is. And now it is the only file inside that folder. Now I know this maybe feels mundane. Maybe this isn't like exploding your brain crazy like it was for me. Like when I was walking through this and realizing that with a few keystrokes, I could do these things that normally, like, let's say I wanted to move that file. I'd have to open File Explorer, and then I'd have to find where exactly was it. Oh, it was in C, and then it was in Users, and there's Jackal Demo, and oh, it's in Demo, and okay, well now I have to click and drag, and I want to move it back out to here. Like, all of that moving of the mouse and the clicking, like that to me is tedious. Whereas I can instead just keep my hands rooted on my keyboard, type away a few fancy commands, and like the computer is just from the keystrokes, the computer is doing what I've instructed it to do. And to maybe really kind of hammer that home, let's undo what I just did. So now I'm going to move this item, demo text file, and not as easy to move it upwards. We're going to get to see some fancy... You're about to see some fancy maneuvering. So the destination is actually going to be the... Oh, actually, I need to test whether this is going to work how I want it to or not. So there's a command called split path, and I don't know if I can feed it the dot. Nope, it's not going to work like I wanted it to, which is fine. So instead what I want to do is get location. So that's going to read out where I'm at. And what all options do I have out of get location? No, that's fine. Okay. So I want to split the path of get location. And because of, I don't know if you noticed here how the get location returned, it looks like a weird, like it's like a header with an underline. That's just a property that needs dot accessed. So I'm going to access that dot path. I'm going to feed it into split path. And so what that's going to do is that's actually going to give me the one level up in the folder tree hierarchy structure. So now what I can do, which I think I got, I don't think I saved it anywhere. We want to move demo text file. Destination, I have to put everything in parentheses because the parentheses are going to tell PowerShell what order I want this executed in. We're going to run that split path for get location dot path. And if you watch very closely over here as I'm about to hit enter, assuming I don't get any errors, that file just seemingly moved itself out of demo folder and just here into the users Jackal demo folder. Now, admittedly, yeah, like this was a lot to type. But how crazy would that be? Like, let's say you had weird files in here, or let's say maybe there was something where you had a whole bunch of pictures in this folder and you hadn't renamed any of them, so they were all just that blah, templatey names of like 2023, 1201, 04, 05, 07. You know, it's time stamping the photo is what most phones are doing when you take a photo. So you had a whole bunch of those loaded here, and you just want to pull the ones from specifically maybe November 15th, 16th, and 17th. Maybe there was something crazy going on that weekend, and you're like, you just want to be able to move only the photos from that day. Well, what you could do in this hypothetical scenario is you could get the child items, assuming you've now navigated to that current directory, and you want any photos that start with, we'll just do it like a day at a time. So 2023, 11, 15, and then like do a star. So that's now, it won't pull any photos from the 13th, the 14th, the 16th, the 17th. but any photo specifically from there. And then what you can do with PowerShell is you can pipe. So literally that little bar here that I just typed, I held shift and then it's underneath the backspace button on my keyboard at least. We can pipe the output from getChildItem into the next command. So it's chaining or piping commands one from another to another to another to another. Like, how cool is that? So to quickly drum up what I'm mentioning here, the other benefit that I'm about to display is called a for loop. So I want something to run. This $n, that's a variable. I'm creating something that's going to change regularly, or maybe even if maybe I just want to store it in my little bucket to be able to call it later. I'm going to start at 1, and we're going to go to where n is less than or equal to 5. So I'm going to make 5 of these. And then each step, I just want to add one more. So plus plus is the shorthand for add one more to that n variable. So that's my instructions for my for loop. Sorry, that's not so much the instruction. That's the setup for my for loop, the actual instructions. So now what do I want to run each one of those times, so long as all of these conditions are met? I want to make a new item with the name, oh boy, 2023 11.0n. Item type, it'll be a file. So there I go. I've just created 5 files. That happened on, I guess technically that would be November 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. All right. And then we'll say from December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And now what I want to do is I want to only select the files that, I don't really care here, the 2 middle numbers that they've got going on. I think this will work how I want it to. But specifically from the 2nd. Nope, okay, that's fine. Wasn't sure exactly how that was going to work or not. So I'll use the star wildcard character. So it's only finding me the 2. Oh, I realize now I probably should have put like TXT or something, but oh well. For the demonstration purposes, this is going to work regardless. So I have those 2 files, and first we want to do a new folder. Again, I can tab, make it go for there. And then we want to pipe the output of that. And so I want for each object that's being fed into the pipe, I want to move the item. And so $_ is just a way to say like this currently being processed item or record in the pipe. That's what it's the $_ is a placeholder variable for that. And we want to move it as the destination to new folder. And then I have to close my bracket. I don't know if you noticed there, this angle bracket, this greater than symbol, turns red when this is an invalid command for me to execute, and then turns white when I have a valid command that I can execute. So let's just keep an eye. What's going to happen? Boom. Those 2 files that ended 02 are now gone because they live in there. I could do the same thing. Let's say instead of moving them, I wanted to rename the item and oh boy. how fancy do I want to be here? Rename gets a little tricky because you'd want to hold on to things from before. So I'll hold on to that one. If you've watched this far and you're still curious about how to do like a mass rename, but still selectively or using logic to carefully pick what the new name is going to be, please comment below or shoot me an email over at jackalbrute@gmail.com, and I will be happy to hear. I'll be ecstatic to hear feedback of that, and that will be maybe one of the next videos that I'll put in the queue here of PowerShell tutorials. But okay, so that's some of the basic kind of, why should you use PowerShell? To me, like, it's so much faster to dig into what lives in a folder and move around folders and move files from folder to folder and rename files, just all of that kind of fancy thing. And that's literally just doing things here. And yeah, right there, I could have actually, there's a remove item command, and so I could have done that from here at the command line. But you guys have seen now enough, I think. I mean, what are we up to? Like, we're going on close, like, what, 30 minutes, something like that? At least for any of you watching on normal speed. Who knows, maybe you've slowed it down, sped me up, I don't care. The next biggest kind of gotcha that you're going to want to know, and the next big kind of level up moment for running PowerShell, is the ability to save your code to like a source file. So I'm gonna call it source. I could have named this scripts, could have named it who knows what. So I'm gonna name this source code. I'm gonna make a new text file. And we're gonna have this called sayhello.ps1. .ps1. That's probably an extension you've never seen before, and I don't blame you. So we're going to open up sayhello.ps1, and I'm going to type some commands here that might look familiar. So what sayhello is going to do, it's going to write to the host, hello Jackal, and then just for reasons that I don't want to totally get into right now, for anybody coming from Python, you're going to recognize this sort of pattern real quickly. I'm going to put a read host at the end, press enter to close. I'm going to save that. So now what I can do is, here I can set my location to source code. Oh, right, I have to go up first. Then I can go to source code. I can run a GCI, make sure that, yep, that's not at all, that's what's going weird. It saved it as a text file. Okay, so first I need to view the file name extensions, and I don't want this to be a text file. I want it to be a .ps1 file. Good, so now it's there. So if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to run that .ps1 file here from my window. I've stashed PowerShell commands inside it. So what I can do is I can .source or .call the my current location, type out the name of the file, and I can try to run it, and there it is. That's the exact commands that if I would have written write host hello Jackal, and then the read host thing, it just essentially it acts as like a pause button. Hold here until the user hits enter. And I could have literally made that say anything. I could have typed out supercalifragilisticexpialidocious if I felt so inclined. I don't feel so inclined. Okay, so that's a way for me to stash, store, save any sequence of commands and run them on cue right there from the host. Well, let's say I don't want to have to open up Windows Terminal and find that folder and type out this every time. Well, let's say I just wanted to be able to like double click. Is there a way for me to double click and have it run? Well, sure. So we first need to right click. We have to change the properties. So instead of this opening with Notepad, we need this to open with Windows PowerShell. So I first have to find, well, where is that? You have to hold Shift, right click, open file location. And then you notice that's a shortcut. So we have to do this again, open file location. Okay, so there it is. So if I grab this location, I'm going to change that and I want to search for an app on this PC, go to that folder, and I want to run this file using PowerShell.exe, apply it across the board. So anything that ends .ps1, I want to run it with PowerShell. Now if I go to double click, there it is. Depending on your machine, that might not have worked. And if that didn't, and here you can kind of see why I wanted that press enter to close. Because watch what's going to happen. Like, take a guess real quick. What's going to happen when I press enter? I kind of gave the clue away here to close. It's going to close this window. Why did it close like that? Well, as far as this file was concerned, it did its job. It started at the top, ran every line, got to the bottom. There was no more lines to run. I'm going to close it and be done with it. So that's the difference of running at the command line or running here. The gotcha there is PowerShell. So Windows, Microsoft, that wrote PowerShell understands that you might make mistakes and that those mistakes sometimes could be disastrous. So they put some safeguards, fail-safes in place to try to prevent you from hurting yourself. One of those is what's called the execution policy. I understand execution sounds weird. I didn't get to set this jargon. It's just what I'm stuck with. So my computer, I don't know how long ago I did it. I set my execution policy to completely unrestricted because I was like, you know what? I trust myself. Let me run PowerShell. No rail. Like, this is like you've gone to the bowling alley and you've told the person, put down those bumpers. I'm going to go do my best. Like, knowing like a gutter ball would be real, real bad. If you wanted to bring those bumpers back up, you can set the execution policy, or let's say you've never before set the execution policy and this truly is a brand new machine for you. That execution policy is most likely going to be set to, I want to say remote signed. It's either remote signed or restricted is like the default setting for users. So I'm going to set my execution policy. The scope, I just want it to be current user because I don't want to mess up my scope for the other users that are also me on this machine. And the execution policy, let's do it as restricted. I think that's what comes like out of the box. And now if I run that get execution policy, I'm restricted. So if I try to double click to run this, I don't know if you what it tried to tell me there real fast. And for any of you who can, who are watching the video and can pause it at just the right spot, it was giving me a red error alert or a red error warning. I don't remember if it'll give me the same from here. It does. Okay. So now I can actually really focus on, well, what is this error that it's feeding back at me? Well, it's saying that this cannot be loaded because running scripts is disabled on this machine. For more information, see about execution policies at this website. And then it's telling me, well, it was at line 1, character 3 of this that I tried to run. So this is viewed as, line 1, character 1, 2, 3. Okay, so right here, is where things went south. From here on, we were like, no go, do not collect your $200, go directly to jail. And then there's just some more error information. So if you want to be able to have the ability to like stash your code into a PS1 file and then run it either from a console session host or by the really fancy way, the double clicking, you're going to have to set that execution policy. You can be real kind of blasé, real bold, set it for like local machine or just machine policy, some of these different scopes, who does this change of execution policy apply to? And then really the only way you're gonna, the two options that I believe you need to run, like to have the double click feature, is either undefined or unrestricted. And at that point now, you have accepted all risk for any potential virus that you download from the... So let's say you pull a PS1 file from GitHub and you don't go through every line of it, and it somehow turns out that somewhere in those lines was a virus or something that you didn't want to have happen is now going to happen as soon as you run that file. You've accepted that risk. So be very cautious about anything you pull from the internet, because you just never know. Especially like when you start looking into maybe files, like there's a file I wrote for work. It is one function among many functions, and the source code for that one function is 1,000 lines. Now, admittedly, that's not 1,000 typed lines. There's buffer lines and there's all kinds of indents. I mean, this isn't like 1,000 lines of an essay that you wrote for school. No, this is 1,000 lines of source code. But it's still like, if you were going to sit down and try to read that, it's going to take you a long time. And because you may not know that person who uploaded that file to GitHub or up to wherever you pulled it down from, there could be malicious intent behind that file. So please, 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 if you're going to start pulling files down from the internet and running them, like, just proceed with extreme caution. But I'm going to show you real quick here, because it's going to prompt me for some, like, are you sure? Are you really, really sure? Never mind. No, it's not. Okay. Sometimes when you go to run that command, you're going to get prompts with like, did you mean to do this? Are you sure that's what you want to do? And it's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And here, another fancy thing with the Windows terminal, I can open many of these, and now it's like at a different location. But basically what I've done is like, I've started fresh. The really wild thing though is the commands I've ran previously, I can still up arrow to view them. So now I can see here that my execution policy is unrestricted. I can set my location here to source code. That was a real quick right arrow. So like when you saw that highlightedness, for me to like jump ahead. And then here in source code, I want to run the say hello command, and look at that, I can run it. For any of you that maybe don't have that fanciness, where you can where it's like trying to predict what I'm typing, because I'm not actually sure whether that's a Windows terminal thing or something else I've downloaded. PowerShell, this is going to be the last tip, I promise. Last tip. PowerShell has an automatically loaded file similar to this called your profile. So already behind the scenes, when I loaded this Windows terminal host, the variable $profile was automatically loaded for me. So this is telling me that at C users Jackal demo documents Windows PowerShell Microsoft.PowerShell _profile.ps1. That file, or at least that variable, already exists. Now, does the file exist? Well, I can test path and false. Okay, so it should be that, yeah, you should be getting this fanciness of SL. What is it trying to predict for me? This, but I brought up the profile, so let's talk about the profile. In order to initiate or set up the profile, we need to do a new item. Actually, here I don't want name. This I actually do want it to be like the path. So profile, and I think if I just do force. The reason you have to do force is like where this is living technically is like you're not supposed to be allowed to create and edit files there, but we're special. Now we're PowerShell users. So we're allowed to. And then we're going to open that profile file in Notepad. And so just to kind of demonstrate roughly what this does, I'm going to add that hello jackal to my profile. I'm going to Control S to save it, so the little asterisk went away, so you know that this file is saved and safe to be closed. And anybody want to take a guess here what's going to happen when I open a new tab? I'll give you a couple seconds here to think about it. If you need a window to pause, let's find out. So even before this very first line of my command line appeared, my profile was executed. It was run auto-magically. So what you can do is, let's say maybe there's an alias that you would rather use inside your profile. Remember, we can just do up like that. Let's say you wanted to set an alias of go for the value set location. And now because you've added that to your profile, that's going to be ready for you every time you open Windows Terminal or that clunky old PowerShell window that I told you never to use again. So you can set aliases. You can do something that's a little more advanced called a function. You can set up functions. You can do all sorts of wild things here in your profile script. And this was something that I had heard when I first was learning about it. I heard of it, and then I couldn't couldn't put the right Google keywords for somebody to walk me through exactly. So I just want to try to, if I can save you the hour or 2 hours or however many hours it was for me of headache and Googling of why can't I, people are talking about this profile. What is a profile? What is my PowerShell profile? Hopefully that has now saved you those hairs from being pulled from your skull. Really hope it has. But that is going to conclude this beginner level intro lesson to Windows PowerShell. If there's any point that I was maybe moving too fast or didn't clarify enough, please comment below. This is a one-way street. I'm putting this out into the void, and I know nothing how it's being received unless you reply back, unless you comment, reach out to me here on Twitter X. You can email me, the jackalbrute@gmail.com. Truthfully, I want you to be a better PowerShell coder than I am. Because if you become a better PowerShell coder than me, now I can learn from you. And we can just keep pressing each other forward one step at a time until, I don't know, we take over the world or something crazy. So that's my motivation. Hopefully you've taken away at least one, maybe many lessons from this video. But this was a long one. If you've made it from beginning to end, oh my goodness, thank you. I cannot express enough gratitude that you've slogged through what this is almost an hour or something of a tutorial that was really just me typing and creating, deleting, and moving around files. I don't know, to me, nothing exciting. Hopefully some part of it at least kind of wowed you or surprised you. Just something that made it worth your time. Regardless, this is enough YouTube. Go do something amazing. Go code something for yourself. Or maybe just take a drink of water, get out of the chair, take a few steps, live a little.